This week's guest on the podcast is a very exciting one because it's taking us all the way back to episode number 2 and the first guest I ever had on Nutrition Grad Guide, talking to one of my besties, Jacinta Barbagallo, who is a qualified nutritionist. She's now studying to be a naturopath as well, adding to her toolkit, her already very big and very knowledgeable toolkit. And she runs a very successful online clinic, Orenda Women's Health, where she has other people working with her and on her team. She's just brought on a practice manager alongside a naturopath she has working with her, and two naturopaths or one?
Two naturopaths.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if one was a nutritionist. So 2 naturopaths, a practice manager. There's just so many amazing things that you're doing. You've also got a kinesiologist, right?
We had a kinesiologist. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. This is going to be awesome to unpack because you've grown so much since episode number 2 of Nutrition Grad Guide when you were working at RN Labs. So
I don't even know if I had Orenda back then.
I don't know if you did.
I'm not sure if I had yet.
You must have just started. Maybe we're starting on the side, but I don't know if when we recorded you did. I feel like it might have come after.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Yeah, so we've got lots to catch up on today, but let's start with catching up on how you went from working at RN Labs to where you are now, running such a successful, thriving online clinic.
Oh, thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, so where do I start? So basically when I was working for RN Labs, my role working for them, just in a little summary for those that haven't heard the second episode, basically working for them, I was the sales manager for Victoria and South Australia. So I worked a lot with naturopaths, nutritionists, and integrated doctors in terms of educating them on supplements, but also being able to help them in terms of understanding functional pathology. And that was helping them to navigate understanding the science behind the actual what goes into the labs and everything, like what actually really classifies a good test as a good test, why you need that test, and most importantly, how to interpret the test results, and then how to create a treatment plan specifically for that client based off that. I absolutely loved it because it was delving so much into education. And then I just got so every single time I'd help a practitioner, I'm like, I want to be the one prescribing. I was like, if I saw this test result, this is what I would be doing. Or this person needs this. And I got so I was always so envious. And I was like, I just want to put it into practice. And I was learning all these amazing tools and meeting so many great people. But most importantly, because I met so many people that were doing amazing things, I was like, I want to be the person that's taking control and supporting a client and being able to get these incredible results with them. I was like, right, time to work and practice. And basically what I did was I then started working for a skin clinic, and I'd already done a little bit of practicing already prior to that. I had worked years prior, just in actually my brother's gym, just doing consults and stuff here and there. And I then started working with a skin clinic, and I was doing just 1 day a week with them. So of course I then niched into skin very quickly. And essentially while I was working for RN Labs, because there's RN Labs, which is for the practitioners, and then Sarah Health was another part of the business, which is specifically for retailers. But amongst the retailers included a whole lot of skin therapists and skin clinics in Melbourne. And I was training a whole heap of them on understanding the impact of internal health and just basic stuff in terms of we did a lot of training around essential fatty acids. But of course, I can't stop talking once I start educating. So as I then started to train a lot of these skin clinics on understanding essential fatty acids and all this kind of stuff and the impact of the gut, I'd then always talk about other stuff. I'd give them so many little tips and tricks on how to navigate their consults to understand the impact of what could be going on for their client, how that's presenting on their skin. And having that kind of one-on-one contact with the people who were helping the clients, and specifically with skin, plus doing all the testing, then that really set me up to be able to go and work in practice. And then I was working in the skin clinic, working with clients. And then this was actually at the start of the pandemic. It was when we went into lockdown, and it was probably as soon as we went into lockdown, I was supposed to start with them. And then it was we had to delay it because of everything that was going on. And at that point, I negotiated with RN Labs to be like, right, let me cut down so I can be in practice. And I think that's an important lesson that I learned along the way is there's going to be times in your career where you're really going to want to grow and delve into a different aspect of your career, which means you need to let whatever you're currently doing go and recognize where you need to really make those big calls for yourself so you can actually head into the direction of where you want to go. So I had to negotiate, cut down. I worked in the skincare clinic, all online pretty much from the get-go. And then it was only after like 2 months, I zoomed through things very quickly. So it was only after 2 months that I was like, I know I want to work on my own. Like, I know I want to have my own business. I'm just going to call it and I'm going to do it now. And it was the biggest risk I took because it was literally middle pandemic. And I was like, I'm going to start on my own. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of how the transition happened. So then basically at that point, I then started working in my own clinical practice online alongside working for RN. And I was working for RN Labs maybe about, I think it was about 4 days a week, and I was running my practice. So it was 4 days, 9 to 5. I would work a full day in clinic on Fridays. I'd work maybe Tuesday, Thursday nights, and I'd work like Saturday morning. So I was working like a mad woman.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
And it was that way for about 6 months. I think what made it easier was the fact that we were in lockdown, so I didn't feel that I had to keep up with the commitments of everything else, and I loved what I was doing, so I could just really kind of commit to that. I did that for about 6 months until it got to a point that I was just getting so tired, and I was like, I love what I'm doing, but I'm sick of needing to use like my chill time at night to make compounds for my clients, when I should really be chilling. And then I ended up needing to let go of RN and just went straight into clinic. And at that point, I was working so one full day, maybe 2 to 3 half days, like nights and like weekends. But then because I knew that I was going to be leaving RN in like X amount of weeks, I was like, cool, I'm still going to work for you for another 8 weeks. I then could set my calendar up for a full-time schedule because I knew I was leaving. So from the moment I left RN, I went straight into full-time clinic Monday through to Thursday or Monday through to Friday. And I didn't have to suffer the consequences of not having enough money coming in because I already set myself up that I was like, I know in 8 weeks, I'm going to have a full calendar. So let's book as many people as I can for then. And that's how the transition happened.
Yeah, that is amazing. And one thing I really want to point out is just how good you are at taking action. And I believe that that's one of the keys to success is actually being able to move, even when it's scary, even when it's like, oh, I'm jumping from a full-time job and a secure salary to working for myself. And yes, you set it up in such a smart way, so it didn't feel like as much of a leap, but even like leaving the skin clinic because you knew deep down you wanted to work for yourself. This is amazing, just how quick you can be like, it's only been 2 months, but I'm ready to take the next step. And then you just keep building on that. So celebrating you for that and all you've built from being able to move and just being able to hold yourself through everything that comes up. It's super inspiring to see, and just to see your growth from even just we were looking at the thumbnail for that photo and just see how we've changed. Externally and internally. It's really beautiful to see how far you've come, and so great to be able to celebrate your success.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I think it's really important to make sure that you're not letting kind of imposter syndrome and everything kind of come in the way. And I think that's one thing I actually quite value about myself in terms of my mindset when it comes to work is, and I'll delve into other things a bit later, but majority of the time I've been very much like, this is my lane, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want, this is my next step that I need to do, and not focusing on the other people that are doing what I'm doing, because so many people are doing incredible things, but also you're not new. Everyone is doing whatever you're doing, someone else has already done before. And if you kind of think in that mindset of focusing on all that kind of stuff, you'll never make any decisions because you'll almost fear what could happen. But I've always tried to kind of have that mindset, well, this has no choice but to be successful. Like if I actually give all of this, it has no choice but to go the way that I want to go. And I think that mindset is what's really kind of driven me throughout the whole time. And like, not to say that I haven't had my periods of doubt, like, you know, even today, you know, outside of the podcast, how you and I was kind of speaking a bit about business, and I was like, oh, I kind of feel like I'm lacking this, this, and this at the moment. And it's normal to go through those waves. But I think the thing that's kind of sped me through the process with my clinic is always thinking about, what would the future version of my clinic need, and what do I need to do now to support that future version of my clinic that I'm trying to create?
Love that. Yeah, that's powerful. Incredible. So one thing I want to chat a little bit about is how you went from like having just one full day and a couple of half days to booking out a full-time clinic calendar. So I know you have a good like referral system that you still continue to implement a lot. And I feel like a lot of people can get huge value from hearing about how you've leveraged other people's clinics and audiences to also build your own, and working with other modalities and practitioners to provide people from multiple angles. So can you chat a little bit about building your audience?
Because that's a massive thing. Whenever I speak to clinics or practitioners, that's one common question that always comes up when they're afraid to leave a clinic or they're afraid to do something on their own, is like, how did you get yourself to a place that you feel comfortable with that? So I'm going to break it up into a few parts. First, I want to talk about the referrals, and then don't let me forget, I want to talk about actually the process of building rapport with your clients, because that's the most important thing. You could have an excellent referral system, but once that referral is in the door, you're responsible for actually keeping that client.
Totally.
And so I want to break it up into those two parts. Cool. So first, the referral system. So as you know, like I said, I specialize in skin. So we see a lot of acne, rosacea, perioral dermatitis, eczema, psoriasis, staph infections, fungal infections. We see a whole heap of skin conditions. And essentially what happened when I was working for IRN, as I was saying, that I did a lot of skin education for their clinics, and they also understood that there's more to it. They knew that, you know, already the fact that they're prescribing fish oils, they knew that topical skincare wasn't going to cut it for everything or every skin condition, and that they needed a collaborative approach. So essentially, I collaborated with a lot of different skin clinics in Victoria. There's quite a few in New South Wales. There's some in Perth that we have. There's actually some even in the US that send us clients. There's some that are in New Zealand, some in Queensland, like Tassie. Like there's quite a few skin clinics in different places. And essentially, I obviously educated through RN, so I met a lot of skin clinics that way. But then I also just made connections with people who worked in the industry that I knew were on the other side. So, for example, I made connections with someone who is a skin therapist. She's actually recorded an episode with me on my podcast. So she's a skin therapist, she's a naturopath, hasn't practiced in naturopathy, but a whole lot, I think, extensively, but she teaches a lot of skin clinics. So she has a course herself. I came in good contact with her. She started referring all these different types of skin clinics to me, because she was like, right, if you need internal support, this is a person that you go to. And then word just started to spread. It just kind of amongst the skin clinics, I was like, right, if you need internal referrals, you go to Orenda Women's Health. I then somehow, there was the business manager for a brand called Dermavigils. That's a skincare brand. They are amazing because a big part of their concept of Dermavigils is focusing on a holistic approach externally and internally. And they're a skincare brand that actually educate a lot of their skin therapists on the impact of internals. So anyway, long story short, one of their reps basically found out about me. Again, when she started to go through all of her trainings and teaching all of her clinics, she was telling all of them, go and see Jacinta. Now she's one of my best mates, and I became such good friends with her. And I was just like, kept getting all these clinics coming to me, and they're like, Brooke keeps telling us about you. I was like, who is Brooke?
That's
Like,
awesome.
I need to know who Brooke is.
Yeah.
So I like went on my Instagram straight away, found Brooke, and like messaged her instantly. I was like, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate it. And she was just like, oh my God, like, no, I think everything that you're doing is incredible. And it was just because like we had that reach because people knew what we were doing. We were really refining our niche. We were figuring out the voice of how we needed to speak. I was figuring out who was talking to my audience, and I was figuring out a way that I could make good connections with them. So I think for those people that are wanting to get out into their own realm, and it doesn't have to be skin, it could be, you know, children's health, it could be reproductive health, it could be anything, but you need to think about, where is my ideal client? Create a character profile of actually who your ideal client is, what their name is, what their age is, their financial status, how much money they actually have, because yes, it's business. They need to have a certain amount of money to be able to invest in the things that they're going to be buying from you, or your services and everything.
Absolutely.
You need to think about like writing the whole character profile of who your ideal client is and who is in contact with that ideal client. And then speak to the person who's speaking to them.
Yeah.
And that could be like, you know, let's say, for example, if you're wanting to work in pregnancy or postpartum care, then who are the practitioners that they're speaking to that they're already undergoing care within the medical system that you can collaborate with, that have a holistic mindset, that will be able to kind of collaborate with you and identify where your service is going to be needed. So in that kind of realm, sometimes that could be a little bit tricky, but there's always someone that's talking to your ideal client, and there's always a way that you can mesh in with that niche.
Yeah.
Mesh in with, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to
say? Yeah.
So I think that's how I kind of built from like one day to multiple days, was my referral system. And a lot of it then ended up becoming word of mouth. The other thing is that with that, and it's probably going a little bit off topic, but I want people to know that you don't have to have everything perfect before you set things up.
Yes.
And the reason I say this is because how I said I was prepared to leave RN, I didn't even have a website at that point. I didn't have anywhere that people could book. The only places they could book was if they emailed me, then I would get back to them and give them times, and then I would book them in.
Wow.
I don't think they even have my phone number. Like, it was literally just my email. And that's like, because people booked in with me, not because I didn't even have an Instagram.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I had Instagram with the best Instagram reels and like the best Instagram, like informative posts, and, you know, the best website that had the greatest SEO that attracted so many people to the website. It was purely because I was speaking to the people that I had built trust with. So the clients that came to me, they already had trust in their skin clinician, right? And then I built trust with that skin clinician to know that I could support their client. And then because they trusted that referral, they're like, right, I'm going to go straight to see Jacinta. I'm not even going to bother with this person on Instagram that has 15,000 followers that says they specialize in skin, because I haven't heard anything personally about her.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing that I think helped me with my, I guess, being able to build from that one day to multiple days, was that I found people that I could establish trust with and that could trust me.
Yeah. Beautiful. And now speaking to the rapport once people came through to you, that second part that you wanted to cover?
Yes. So now this is such an important part. Now it's got to do with the way that you hold yourself in a consultation. And I think that's something that I've found that I've almost done. I feel like I do quite well in my consults. I feel like I have the ability to be able to empathize with my clients, to be able to help them understand, to explain things to them. I don't hesitate to educate. Like, within the first 5 minutes, I'm probably already explaining pathophysiology of a condition, helping them understand all the different avenues that they haven't explored yet that we can explore together. And also sometimes focusing on that education of what they've already done and why it didn't work. And I think that can be really helpful. So to put it into context, I had a client, or have multiple clients, sorry, that have had, acne. Now, a lot of them would say they take the pill or doxycycline. Now, I can educate them on why their skin cleared when they were on that, what the side effects were, and why the skin's reacting the way that it is now, based off the information that I've probably taken in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And just by doing that, they're like, oh my God, no one ever explained that to me. Even just as simple as saying, hey, did you know that acne is an infection of the pilosebaceous unit and it's caused by X, Y, and Z, and you need to correct this, this, and this? They're like, no one's actually told me the definition of acne before. I'm like, yeah, but that's what it is. And I think that's the thing, is never underestimate the impact of education. Yeah. Because even if I look at a lot of the reviews that I've had from my clients, and the general feedback I get from my clients is they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel like they have someone that listens to them, but they feel like they left their consult with a whole lot more education and knowledge.
Beautiful.
So I think that's a really important part as to why. And another thing is, I often find in my initial consults at the end, a lot of clients are always like, I feel like I have direction. And direction is an important part. Now, that giving your client direction is then going to help them book in for a return consult, because they're going to feel like they have someone that knows the path that they need to take to get to where they need to be. Yeah. It's an important thing, because I think being successful as a practitioner, a lot of it also comes down to your sense of self-worth, right? And whether you believe you're worthy enough to help people, whether you believe you're knowledgeable enough to be able to provide, the solution. And that really, people can pick up on that. If they can feel that you don't have that kind of confidence, then they're not going to rebook. Yeah. Yeah. So they need to be able to feel that they're being supported. And there was something that I actually listened to once, and it's something I always educate my practitioners on that work for me. We're always talking about it. I always remind them that people need to be led. So people feel like they need to be led. When they feel like they're lost with their health, or they feel like they're lost in any avenue of their life, they need direction, they need to be led, they need steps. Yeah. And if they have steps, then they feel like they know where they're kind of going to end up, Yeah. And that's one thing I always make sure at the end of my consults. I'm like, right, this is what we're doing. We're going to be doing testing. We're going to be doing this with your diet. We're going to be doing this. In your next consultation, I'm going to be checking in with making sure we're reviewing your diet. We're going to be making sure we're assessing your adherence to your supplements. I want to hear that you've started that book and reading that book that I told you to read. I want to hear that you've set your boundaries. I want to hear that you've made just even one simple tweak with your diet. And I want to review your tests. Now, even with that, that's a massive thing, because sometimes we can find in our clinic people will either rebook or they won't rebook based on the wording that you give them. If I word it to say, in your next consult, we are only going through your test results, do you know how hard it is for some people to find time to get their tests done? Yeah. So if you were to leave it up to say, hey, I'm going to wait until I have your test back before we do our next consult, they could push you back 3 months. Yeah. And you won't get them back in your clinic. Yeah. So sometimes I word it in a way to say, take your time with getting your tests. Ideally, we want them as soon as possible, because the quicker you get your tests, the quicker we're going to know exactly what's going on, and the more specific I can create the treatment plan. But if you don't have them done before your next consult, don't stress, because we can actually really do a lot just by focusing on your diet and your lifestyle and this and that. But let me know how you go if there's any issues with getting it done. Yeah. And that's, I think, in terms of being able to build to X amount of days, you need constant return clients. And you obviously, that depends on whether they feel like they're being led, whether they feel like they've got direction, you feeling confident in the steps that you're laying out for them, and also making sure it's just that wording that it's not in their hands. Yeah. I think if you leave things to be like, hey, when you feel right, come and see me again. Yeah. And I can 100% tell you, I've had 2 or 3 naturopaths that I've had consults with that are like, when you feel like it's the right time to book in with me, then book in with me. And I have never booked back in.
Yeah.
And it's purely because I'm like, actually, my herbs should run out in 5 weeks. So technically you should book me back in maybe about 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So then you can give me a new prescription.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, that's my little spiel on building rapport and making sure that your consults, you're in control of what's happening next.
Yeah, that's powerful and really like potent advice, because you're so right. And I can see why people would fall into the trap of being like, oh, when you feel ready, book in, because that kind of comes from that self-worth and that confidence, the ability to lead. Like, it's all very linked. But like getting over the feeling of like, oh, selling people or like wanting to rebook people is something that's sleazy or pushy. It's not. You're doing it because you want to help them, not just because you want to make money off them. Yeah, sure, you make money off them. It's a fair energy exchange. But like knowing that it's like, that's actually really important to do, and to be able to have that level of leadership, and people will look up to you and respect you for that, not be like, oh, she was really pushy. And obviously it comes in the way that you do it as well. You need that balance of love and leadership rather than just being like too forceful. But I think it's so important, because it can be so easy to just be like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just trust that whenever you're ready, I'll see you again. Like, and getting stuck more in that wishy-washy energy, which doesn't feel like, oh yeah, I need to come back because she showed me how important it is for us to go over that stuff, or for me to get my next prescription, or whatever it may be.
It's almost like outlining to your clients that this is the formula that we use to get results. And if you don't follow this formula, then I can't guarantee it's going to happen. And it's like, if I were to say, hey, yeah, I'll leave it up to you, that means they could come back in 6 months' time. They're not going to get results.
Totally.
There's 6 months in between consults. The other thing that we've also got to think is what we're doing is holistic health. And that particular person, and I'm not medical shaming, because like it definitely has its place, but they've obviously come in the realm of skin. 95% of the time we see people who have already been on multiple medications for years, on and off, and then they seek alternative health. So I don't even like the word alternative health, because you know, but holistically they're seeking treatments. And they have come to you because all the medical care they've had at that point is someone that wasn't thorough, someone that didn't provide a step-by-step as to what's happening next. What actually happens when I get off the pill? Or what actually happens when I stop doxycycline? And is there anything else that I need to change? And they have already been down a medical model that possibly hasn't given the same thought or care as to what you can provide them. So they're coming to you because they actually want someone that cares. And you outlining your step-by-step guide for them, and telling them that you want to see this in the next consult, and you want to do this. Yes, it's coming because you have a business, but it's coming because you care. Like, it's coming from a place of care because you actually care to see them. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be wording it that way.
That's such a good way to look at it. I love that. Beautiful. Some really great tips for how to build that client base and how to retain the clients. I love that. And so you mentioned that when you first were building, you didn't even have the website or the social media and things, but now that you do have the website and the social media, how have you found things have shifted? Obviously, one, it's probably so much easier to have people book in themselves rather than you have to send them dates.
Absolutely.
But like, what other shifts have you seen, even just from putting yourself out there on social media, and the growth that's come from that as well?
So once I then started my socials, we reached out to a whole larger audience of skin therapists. So my Instagram reaches audiences of people that are clients, people that are practitioners, people that are skin therapists. So social media really helped me kind of to grow in that way, but also to give people my voice, because there was no platform for me to share my voice. And one of the big reasons that I was really afraid to leave RN was because of the education side of things. I love practicing with clients, but I equally love educating. And I really was worried that I was going to miss out on that by leaving RN. So since I actually then started my Instagram and started my website, I then was able to create a course called Advanced Acne Training for Skin Therapists. And basically what that is a 7-week course. It's a 7-week course that basically guides skin therapists through every potential driver of acne. So it goes through understanding intense, like all the information regarding medications, the side effects, pros, cons. It goes through diet, gut, lymphatics, nervous system, hormones, detoxification, lifestyle, so much stuff. And because I had socials, I was able to then talk about that. And then from that, I made passive income off my course. But then from that, I also then reached a whole lot of skin therapists because of that content. When I started Instagram and socials and my business, I actually have one of my best friends that was the social media, or like their marketing coordinator. And she really helped me put things into practice in terms of what was going to be important for my business and the voice that we needed to use. So I highly recommend for people that are starting out in business, maybe speak to a marketing coordinator to start off with. So, or marketing consultant, sorry, not coordinator, marketing consultant, to actually see how you can really optimize different funnels in your business to really get the most out of it. With that, even we just broke it down into as simple as like, what are the categories of what we're going to speak about on social media? What is the voice, the color palette, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. And she helped me so much with all of that. And she worked with me for about 1.5 years. And then the last 6 months I've done it all on my own. So it's been quite a lot. I've been managing obviously the clients, the podcasts. I'm an accountant, I'm a social media manager, I'm a mentor for the girls that work with me. So you do naturally end up wearing a lot of hats. But the social media aspect has definitely been able to help me to reach a larger audience. I also then find we are getting a lot more clients that are actually just hearing out from us organically from Instagram, not from the skin clinics. So that was our goal. We were like, right, we want to keep up the skin clinics and make sure we're keeping in contact with all the different skin clinics, but it would be nice to also have our own chain of clients that are coming from our own education and things that we're providing online. And we've achieved that. So we get so many clients that do that. And then from there, we can refer them to the skin clinics that have sent us so many clients. We can then send them clients because we need the externals covered at the same time. The socials have also then been a really great platform for us to focus on discovery calls, because we originally didn't have discovery calls and people would just book in. But now we actually have a patient advocate and clinic manager that takes all of our discovery calls. We started to do discovery calls for the other practitioners in the clinic, and they would take the discovery calls, and then they would take the client, like whoever happened to book in for a discovery, they would do it. But then I was like, okay, I don't like that you're giving away a lot of your free time to do this. Like, I would rather, from a business perspective, I would rather pay someone to do this because it's a form of marketing. But I also want to make sure that it's done from a non-biased perspective. So when I have the patient advocate and practice manager taking the discovery calls, she can easily filter through who's going to be the right practitioner for that client. Of course, if you're taking a discovery call, you're going to be like, that client's mine. You're not going to pass them off to someone else. You're like, I'm taking this discovery call. This is my client. But having the patient advocate and the practice manager really helps, because there's sometimes she'll even say to a client, like, you know, actually, I don't know if this is the right clinic for you. And sometimes she'll be like, look, you don't need to see Jacinta, because we like to save Jacinta for more of the complex cases. You can see Phoebe and you can see Katie, and it's no problem. And, you know, we all do exactly the same thing. So she can help to filter through who might be the right, even just based off personality or the way that we work. And that's been really great for our business. So, like, you know, even in the space of a week, sometimes we could have, you know, 5 new discovery calls, and it's only something we've brought out recently. So we're hoping obviously for it to build even more. But even just 5 new discovery calls a week means 5 new patients for the next week.
It's fantastic.
Which isn't, you know, when you're, you know, with 3 of you, that's quite a lot. And if we're already booked, then, you know, that's just kind of adding in. So that's how, like, socials and stuff, they've really helped. Definitely.
Yeah, beautiful. I love like how your business has grown and has like so many different avenues and ways you help people, like through teaching the skin therapists and skin clinics, collaborating with them, being able to do that back and forth referral, bringing in all your own clients through organic reach now as well. Like, yeah, it's amazing to see this web that you're weaving and the way that you have been able to have such an impact in the skin and women's health areas. Speaking of your course that you created, Educating All Around Acne, is it just good for skin therapists or is it also good for fellow nutritionists and naturopaths?
Yeah, good question. So basically with the course, I honestly think if you were a new grad, you'd still get a lot out of it because there's so much stuff that kind of delves into understanding like specific questions that you can really ask your client to be able to understand the connections between particular things. Like, even for example, I'll give you a case. December, I had a client. Actually, I saw her last week for her return. That's why. But December, I had a new client. She's actually a skin therapist herself. She booked in for a consult. She had kind of like rosacea, perioral dermatitis. And by asking the right questions, I was then just as simple as, do you get any sores inside your nose? She's like, yeah, all the time for years. They won't budge. I'm like, right, let's do a swab, get your nose tested. Let's see if there's any staph. And the next time I saw her, she's like, oh my God, there was staph, treated the staph. Now my skin is significantly better.
Wow.
Plus, some of the supplements and the diet stuff that I gave her.
Yeah.
But that stuff you don't really learn in uni. And I know in uni they don't teach you stuff near as in depth as like with case taking with skin conditions. There's so much to know with the skin. And that's why I've loved working with the skin therapists, because I've actually learned so much from them too. And there's so many things or questions that you can ask to be able to be like, right, so the skin's presenting this way. This could actually be linked to this infection. What are the signs and symptoms of this infection? Should I ask them, do they get boils? Do they get any forms of breakouts on their skin that forms a yellow crust? Do they ever get any infections in their earrings? Do they get any have any open wounds that has infections? Just simple questions. And it's like, well, that's all staph related. And if they were to tick all of those boxes, then they possibly have a staph infection on their skin, and you can't treat the skin until you treat infection. If there's an infection like staph, or if there's a fungal infection, nothing will change. So that's in the course. I go into so much about case taking and particular questions that you can ask to really navigate that. Even with things like related to the gut, related to hormones, I go through particular things in terms of breakouts, in terms of the different parts of the menstrual cycle and what that can mean. Now, because this was mainly designed for skin therapists, I don't go into a whole lot of nutritional ingredients and herbal remedies that you can use to try to counteract some particular, like to try to support some of these things. A lot of it is diet and lifestyle. Because I obviously like to keep us all in our own realms of what we're doing.
Totally.
But I do go into some supplements, just ones that are like over the counter retail ones that skin therapists can have access to. But a part of the course, they actually get a 30-minute mentoring session for free with myself. So that in itself is probably valued over $100. And so people that are new grads, you can do the course, learn so much, and then use that time to really kind of be like, right, Jacinta, teach me the pathology that I should be running. What are the reference ranges? What are the treatments that you often use? And, that can set you up really well. And then if there's any cases down the track that you've got a case study, you can do one-on-one mentoring with myself and go through the whole case in a lot of detail.
Amazing. I love that. Such a great resource to have out there and for people to have access to, especially if they want to specialize in skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And the course itself is obviously it's online and it's self-led in the sense that like there's videos, there's handouts and all that kind of stuff. It does go for 7 weeks, but you can like fast track it as quick as you want to, because you have access to everything from as soon as you purchase it. And it's also an evergreen course, so you'll pretty much have it for life. So you don't need to like keep repurchasing it every month. Like once you have it, it's yours. So yeah, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a great course.
I think it's a great course too. Highly recommend.
I loved creating it, and I even from those listening from a business perspective, I think it's always helpful to have something that is passive, like a passive source of income, because, you know, you can't deny there's going to be some aspects of your clinic where things are going to be quiet and you're like, oh, I'm relying on something else. You know, over the Christmas period, we were shut for 4 weeks. So that's like 0 consults for 4 weeks. So that's almost $0 coming in, unless there's random Vitally payments or Araya payments or anything like that are kind of coming in. And I was like, right, how can I maximize this time? What do I do? Okay, it's Boxing Day. Let's put a Boxing Day sales on my course. And like from that, within like a matter of, you know, 5 days, made $5,000 from my Boxing Day sales from my course. And it's like, if from my course and actually consults that I'd kind of made sure that I was like, let's put packages together now so people pay now. You can keep that fueling you through until we get through into when we're kind of consulting again.
Amazing.
But if I didn't have that course, then I wouldn't have been able to advertise a higher ticket item to be able to make some money during the Boxing Day period.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's such a smart business move to have something passive. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of courses, we also collaborated on a Healthy Skin from Within, the acne edition course. So also acne related. And yeah, do you want to chat a little bit about the process of creating that course too? Yeah.
Okay. So our Healthy Skin from Within is a collaboration of a 6-week meal plan, which is all acne friendly, as well as education from myself. So Shana was involved in putting together all the meal plans, and I just kind of chimed in, obviously here and there, was like, cool, we need to incorporate this or not this, and this is what I speak to my clients about, so maybe don't put that in there, and so on. But all my educational content, I basically just mapped out very quickly in like a Google Doc that was like, right, these are the topics I want to talk about, this is what I want to cover. But the step-by-step process of doing that, I basically created everything on Canva. And then after we created everything on Canva, we uploaded it into, we use Podia as our platform. And basically it's just a really great platform. Podia is really simple and easy for people to use if you're looking at creating courses. But this course was specifically designed for people that have acne, that wanted to learn about, you know, the side effects of their medications, if they're on these medications, what they need to do to support themselves. We go through diet, gut health, lifestyle, we go through hormones, nervous system, everything, and all with practical things that they can implement to try to address all those different factors. And with this course, it again is self-led, so people can do it themselves. It's not a particular time of the year that we run it. And we also have an affiliate link as well. So if you are a practitioner and you're like, right, this package sounds amazing, I want my clients to do this package while I'm doing the testing and while I'm doing the customized treatment for them in terms of like herbals or nutritionals or whatever your tool is, then you can do that and you can earn a percentage based off the referral.
Yeah. So if anyone is interested in becoming affiliate for that, just reach out to either Jacinta or myself, and we can hook you up with all the details and get you set up to receive commission.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's such an incredible tool to be able to have access to as a practitioner. So and you know, it means you don't need to create it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. And so let's talk a little bit about going from a solopreneur working by yourself in your own clinic to bringing on other naturopaths and a practice manager as well.
Yes. Okay. So I always try to think about, when I think about the business, I almost try to visualize the way that I want it to be. And then I often think about, well, what are the decisions that I would need to make there? Even if I feel like I'm not there right now, what are the decisions I need to make to get there? Because that's how you get there. You get there by making the decisions now. And you know, if you feel like it's the wrong decision, you can also change your mind in 2 months' time and backtrack and be like, nah, sorry, this isn't working for me anymore. I'm going to change my mind. But the most important thing is, when you're running your own show, you need to actually be the one that stops and analyzes from time to time. You really need to have the ability to be like, right, what does the business need? And also be the one to kind of be able to analyze growth and when growth is coming, right? So that's something that I've tried to pick up on over time. And if I could see the books were getting busier, I was like, right, okay, I can see this is getting busier. I've got a wait list of like 8 weeks, and I don't like that, because if I actually have a long wait list, by the time it gets to those 8 weeks, we actually have more reschedules because people have to wait that long. By the time it gets to the 8 weeks, they're like, nah, I've kind of done something else by now. And I was like, actually, the longer I have a wait list, it doesn't make me a better practitioner. I actually will just lose people because they've had to wait so long. So onboarding more practitioners has helped me keep still like a 4-week wait list, but not have to have anything ridiculous that I lose people. And I started, it was just myself. And very early on, it was probably like 3 months into the business, I had Katie. And basically with Katie, the way that we set it up, it was almost like a mentorship. So I would mentor Katie and I would teach her about particular things, and like whether it was like testing or supplements and all this kind of stuff, I'd teach her the skills of what I wanted for a practitioner to have in my clinic. And I didn't guarantee her a date of when she was going to be working with me. There was no promises. It was like, hey, I'm going to take you on as I'm going to mentor you. In exchange, I would love for you to do like an admin task for me per week. So I would set some admin tasks for her. It could even just be creating handouts or recognizing what I need, and she would do that. And then we basically had that exchange. I'd mentor her for an hour. She would do work for an hour for me for admin. And it was probably only after maybe 3 to 5 months of us having that exchange that I was like, right, I'm ready to take you on as a practitioner. You've been under my wing for like 3 to 5 months. I've taught you a lot of stuff that I do. You can go come and work for me as a pracky.
Amazing.
And it was incredible. And that's how it worked. And it was good because she was still working for somewhere else at the time. So there was an attachment to needing to make her busy. It was just like, cool, she came on as one day, she was working somewhere else multiple days. And then it was her and I for about, I'm trying to think of the timeline, might have been about a year or so. And then I got a VA, so a virtual assistant. And with a virtual assistant, it was a time that I recognized that I was like, what does future Orenda need? And I was like, right, if future Orenda is going to be this busy and I need to do this task, then I need someone that's going to help me with this, this, and this now. So I put the ad out, got a virtual assistant, and she was helping me with just like replying to client emails, helping with reschedules, just helping with following up invoices or particular things that we kind of needed done behind the scenes. And she worked with me for almost a year and a bit, and then she moved to Mexico. So it was sad times because I was like, oh, I loved her. But she moved to Mexico, and I was like, right, cool. She recognized herself that she's like, I can't give Orenda everything that it needs because I'm multitasking too much with other things. I think you need someone else. I was like, great, no worries. And before that happened, I onboarded another practitioner. And it was just recognizing that we were growing and I needed someone else to come on board. It was, I guess, trying to find the right practitioner comes with sometimes just obviously like I interviewed a whole bunch of people, and then sometimes there's things that you kind of learn along the way as you're a business owner. They're like, right, okay, I want a practitioner that also has this quality and this and this and this. And then one of my practitioners left the clinic because it just didn't really align. And then I onboarded another practitioner. So now I have Phoebe and I have Katie.
Amazing.
And they're an amazing team. I love being able to have people that work with me because we bounce ideas all off each other. I love being able to help people grow personally and in their business too. So we do a lot of that kind of stuff together. And then I got Grad, so our new patient advocate and practice manager, and she's incredible. I was like, right, I need someone that can do a lot of hours per week to be able to help me manage all the things that I want to do. Because in my big goal is like, I would love to have like some kind of product that I make, or write a book and then have my podcast and like run all these courses and still practice. And it's like, well, you can't do all of that and not have someone that's actually helping you do the admin behind stuff.
Totally.
So it's grown quite a lot, and I love I love where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
And the important thing is delegating tasks, I think is the most important thing. So like particular things with like Greta, I'm always like delegating them, like, right, actually, I really want to do this myself, but actually, do I need to do it? I can actually pass that on to someone else. I also then have just recognized where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are. And, even nothing is ever perfect. And I think that's the important thing to recognize. Like, I feel like Orenda is quite successful for what it is. And I still don't feel like anything is perfect. Like every single day, I'm always thinking about how I can improve it, or the systems we can put in place. And even to the point that I messaged Greta this week, I was like, Greta, we need a new system. You need to be on my back about my social media. I was like, and she's just like to me, right, what's going to work? What do we need to do? And it's just a matter of having like, making sure you've got people that there's no level of hierarchy with anything. It's just having people that are there to support your goal, and you're also there to support theirs. And doing what you need to do to obviously optimize each other and get the best outcomes.
Yeah, it's like such beautiful growth and a beautiful way to approach everything. And I'm sure there's been like the challenges at every level, and like even something like delegating, as you said, it's so easy to be like, oh, but I want to do this, or I can do this, but it's like, is that the best use of your time? And the way that you like kind of future project where your business you want it to be, I think that's such like a valuable skill to be like, okay, this is where I'm going. How do I get there? And then moving from that place, rather than just like kind of focusing on where you are now and just constantly kind of like chasing your tail and never actually building or putting the systems in place for the level of growth that you're looking towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really helped me plan out the steps that I need to do when I think about, well, what does future Orenda look like?
Yeah. Amazing. And so for anyone who's listening along and wants to go into practice and build their own business, their own empire like you have, what would you recommend that they do?
Ooh,
I know
niche.
That's a big question.
It's a big question. I think niche is important. I know there's actually quite a few practitioners in our industry that say not to niche, and I don't know why. I obviously haven't looked at it when I've seen it. I'm just like, nah. But I think niching is important because there's nothing more confusing than an Instagram page or a website that says, I specialize in gut, reproductive, vaginal microbiome, mental health, and skin. You absolutely do not specialize in all of that. And I think that's like, it's important to recognize when there's a case that you're like, actually, this is out of my depth, this is out of my scope, this isn't what I usually see. And if you really want to, I feel like if you want to have quite a good business, it's important to niche. That's from my perspective, because it then helps you create your content on social media. It helps you create your voice. It also then means that you stand out as a go-to person to other people in the industry and to the industry that you're trying to niche in. So if I didn't specialize in skin, I would just be another nutritionist or another naturopath. And which means that, all these different skin clinics that I go to, they all know other naturopaths and they all know other nutritionists, but they choose us because we specialize in skin. And the thing is we see so many clients that come to us and they're like, I've seen naturopaths or I've seen nutritionists before, and we're like, oh, what was the treatment plan? What was the direction that you had? They're like, oh, there was no testing. And it's like, right, well, if you specialize in skin, then you need a test. Otherwise, you're kind of just winging it. And so there's particular things like that where I think niching is really important. The other thing, so I think niching is important if you're trying to establish your business. Reaching out to people that do the work that you don't want to do. So if you don't want to make your website, don't make a website. If you don't want to do your socials, don't do your socials. And sometimes obviously you do end up doing tasks that you don't particularly feel like you want to do. Like, I'm not an accountant and I do my, do all that kind of stuff. But I think when you're identifying it's a block to establishing your business, then reach out. So I know some people, for example, might be like, well, I'm not setting my business up until my website's done. And they're like, oh, but I've been working on my website for like 3 months. And it's like, well, actually, it shouldn't take 3 months to make a website. Reach out to someone. I hate doing website stuff. And it's like, reach out to someone that will make your website. Yes, you're going to have to pay, but actually sitting for 3 months, you're losing money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you could have made so much more than that in that amount of time if you actually had your business up.
Yeah. And what's more important to you, time or money? I know to me, time is far more important because that's like a finite resource, whereas money, you can always make more.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, definitely for people wanting to get into practice, niche, reach out for when you need support from particular people, and work on your own personal stuff, because your personal stuff is going to come up when it comes to business. And I know you and I have spoken about this in depth before, about how business or owning your own business is the best form of self-development, because every single time you're challenged with something, you're like, like full disclosure, I've been through periods of time where I've had to let people go from the clinic, and because it triggered something in me personally. And that's like, that helped me grow on a personal level and also a business level. But the working through your own stuff is also important. This is obviously where Shana comes in, because she does all that kind of work on like mindset and business and all that in one. And if you're going to have these blockages that are going to stop you from making those big calls that you need to actually push you into that avenue of your business that you want to grow, then you're going to be so afraid to do it. And, even for myself, like I said, full disclosure, today, Shana and I were talking about Orenda, and I was saying, I absolutely love what I do, but I'm bored. Like I'm bored because we've had a really big acne focus in the last year, and I love other skin conditions. I still see a lot of rosacea, periodontitis, melasma, psoriasis, and so on, but we speak a lot about acne. And I was like, I'm just feeling like I've had this block with Orenda for the last 6 to 8 weeks. And even though I know it's still doing well on paper, I just feel these blockages around it. And I'm just like, I just feel like it's because I don't feel inspired to write my content, because it's just something that I've been doing for so long on this one particular topic, that I'm like, I need to create that sense of fun.
Totally.
So I think that's an important part, like when you can actually be really emotionally self-aware and be like, well, why am I feeling this way about my business, or why am I feeling about this in personal? And even just being able to identify when something in your personal life is interrupting your business life. It's so important to separate that.
Definitely.
It happens. It 100% happens.
Yeah, it does. And having that awareness when something else is creeping in, and treating your business like a business. This is something that's so important too, because when it's like we're building a business, but things are happening in our personal life, it's so easy to get swept up and be like, oh, but like all of this is going on in my life, so I'm just going to put my business on hold for now. But that's not treating it like the business that we want it to be. If it's like, imagine if you were showing up for a job, yes, there's going to be times where you have to have time off, or where you have to take sick days, or there are going to be exceptions to this rule. But most of the time, if there's things going on in your personal life, you can still show up for your business the way that it deserves and the way that it needs for you to be able to grow it. Because otherwise, there's just always going to be excuses and reasons that we don't show up in our business. And this is why it does come back so much to that mindset. And like, I love how you are just so quick to work through things and be able to hold yourself through things.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I almost feel like for the last 6 to 8 weeks, like I said, that I've been in this little Orenda rut. Like things are fine, and like I'm like, things are good in terms of like clients and growth, and we've got so many things that we're working on. And it's incredible, like we're kind of delving into this year, but you still can't help for things to come up. And it's so interesting, because I get so many messages from people, or just people I know in the industry, that are like, Jacinta, your Instagram is incredible. Or like, I love how people are like, I love how consistent you are. And I'm like, do you know how much I'm on my back about how consistent I am on social media? Because I feel like I haven't posted. I feel like I haven't done this. Like, I feel like I haven't ticked near as many boxes as I feel like I want to tick for my socials. And they're like, yeah, but you're doing it. You're so consistent. And I wish I was doing that. I was like, I wish you were in my head.
Yeah. We're always so hard on ourselves, and it's like, it's true. Often like we're doing such an incredible job, but we don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, definitely having that self-awareness of your own personal stuff, having that awareness of how you're feeling with your business, and also recognizing that you're in control of working through that, and your calendar also reflects that too.
Yeah.
I've seen it, like, you know, even for myself and my contractors, when we go through periods of time when we're just like, hey, we need a break, or like our brain is just not in it. You can see the calendar drops because energetically we're putting that energy out there, and you know, when we feel better, then the business feels better.
Yeah, it's such like an important distinction.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I feel like I could ask you so much more, and we could like continue to go on many tangents with this, but thank you so much for being here and sharing all that you've shared. I feel like there's been so much juice in this episode, and for those listening along, I feel like they've got some epic tools to move forward in their business, or even in like just clinical practice working for somebody else, or wherever they are. There's still like some really potent lessons in here. So thank you for being here and sharing all of that.
My pleasure.
Where can people follow your journey and continue to learn from you, and see all of the magic that you're creating?
So my Instagram handle is at Orenda Women's Health, and my website is orendawomenshealth.com.au. And if you have any personal questions that you feel like you want to ask in regards to business, I always love speaking to prackies. It's like one of my favorite things. So my personal email is Jacinta at orendawomenshealth.com.au. So if you have anything that you're like, hey, I need some advice, then more than happy to help. We could even do another podcast actually on online business and the structures that you need for an online business. I think that could be quite helpful.
Yeah, totally. Let's make that happen.
Yes, definitely.
Beautiful. I'll pop.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'll pop all the links in the show notes for everyone to find them nice and easy. Remember to hit Jacinta up or myself if you want more information around the affiliate link, or where to go to her website if you want to take her up on her acne course to learn and really dive deep into skin conditions and all the causes of acne and treatment. But yeah, thank you again, Jacinta, and I look forward to another episode with you.
Yes, me too. Thanks, Anne.